Hi, it's Friday. It's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're a disabled led arts organisation based in the main Paralympic host borough of Newham. I'm Jew Gosling, also known as Jew 90. I'm an artist and artistic director of Together 2012. With me in my East London studio is our chair, the artist Julie Newman. It's Friday, so before we go over to the other half of our virtual sofa in the West Midlands, we will give you some audio description, including what we're wearing to dress up to go out to stay in. On a Friday, we do just that. We dress up for a special occasion that we're either going to do virtually or not at all, but just because it's fun to dress up. So I have a short hennaed red Corona crop. The tabby cat who's just joined us, Jinx, is a small, thin, slightly elderly brown tabby with a pink collar. She is currently sitting on Julie's lap for anybody who thinks it's just a little bit of blurriness. But back to the rest of the audio description, I have green eyes, olive skin, black framed glasses, black wrist braces, and silver jewellery. To dress up to go out to stay in, I have a kind of lightish green t shirt, and on the front of it is a bright green logo. It's a circular logo with a lady holding a surfboard. Not that you'd actually know that because it's how would you describe it, Julie, as a logo?
She looks a bit like a witch.
Yes, it's certainly not a Nubile surfing logo. That is the T-shirt of Mar Symes Surf Hut down in St David's in Pembrokeshire. So I am dressing up to go out to stay in to go bodyboarding, and yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we've gone around the others. So Julie, who are you? What do you look like, and what are you dressed up to go out to stay in to do?
I'm Julie Newman. I'm the chair of Together 2012. I have silver and gold hair today. My dark rimmed glasses remain the same. I have two wolves howling at a moon stone round my neck, and I have two wolves' heads, whoops, on my wrist, um, which is a pewter bracelet called a Torc, TORC. Today, oh yeah, I have a little black smartphone on my other wrist. I have an outfit on which is a sort of tropical, happy party type short sleeved shirt with a black background. I'm just looking at it on screen. It's got little brown ferns. It's got sort of yellowish ferns. It's got greenish ferns. It's actually is quite ferny.
I think it's palm trees
Palm
leaves.
trees. I've got palm tree leaves all over me in various colours, and that's because I'm going to go to have a barbecue in Margate with my friend Bo.
And are you really going to do that, Julie, or are you going to do it on Zoom or virtually or in the future?
I'm going to do it in the future. I'm going to do it via Zoom, and I'm going to interview Bo because he's actually a very, very interesting man. He's a disabled twitcher. He has a whole site um, about how to birdwatch accessibly. He's actually created a massive following in the birdwatching world, not just for disabled bird watchers, but also for mainstream bird watchers who really like his blogs. He's a fascinating man, and he's agreed to do a blog with me, and not a blog, a Zoom interview.
Well, that sounds terrific. And what we will do in the meantime is put his website up on our highlights and links page. So that's a great opportunity for me to remind you, or if you're new to the show, on our website under Together Unlocked TV, you will find a number of other pages, including highlights and links. And the highlights and links page will have links to everything we discuss on the show, the videos we show, and anything else. Today on Friday, we always offer you something for the weekend after 3:30, which is our list of recommendations for what to do online and offline over the weekend. So Bo's website will be on that. So over to the West Midlands. You've been very patient. Who are you? What do you look like? And where are you going today?
Hi, I'm Josh Surgeon. I'm also one of the hosts of Together Unlocked, and I am a PhD student. Um, and I have blonde hair, but you can't see that because it's hidden under a white cap, the yellow logo and blue writing from the European Basketball Championships. Um, and then I'm wearing admittedly rather warm under the studio lights, kind of triple layer um, black and kind of charcoal grey waterproof jacket. Now, I was torn on what to wear for the weekend between two ideas, so I asked you and Julie what they were doing. And then based on that, I decided on one of them, which is I am dressed in two-thirds of the outfit that I would wear when I used to pilot the safety speedboat on a body of water near our house. So when people were going kayaking and things like that, I was part of the crew that drove the kind of recovery speedboats. We just got to drive around and have great fun and make sure no one kind of drowned. Um, I was going to put the life jacket on, but one couldn't find it. Two, I don't think it fits. And three, I think I might melt if I had have put it on. So I'm slightly glad that I couldn't find that. But yeah, I am mostly dressed to go and pilot a speedboat very quickly around a lake.
I'm so pleased about that because, as I think I might have mentioned briefly as we were coming on air, I also used to sail, and a few weeks ago I dressed up to go out to stay in to sail, including I think my life jacket, which was definitely a mistake. You're absolutely right. But I used to spend quite a lot of time in the rescue boat. We were very competitive sailors, so which meant you capsize quite often if you're trying to go really fast. But I didn't have the upper body strength to get back into the boat. And that's a bit of a thing anyway. So I quite liked zooming around the bay in the rescue boat while somebody got out of the rescue boat and helped rescue the boat.
But not zooming.
Not that sort of zoom.
No.
No, that was before that kind of zoom had
That
been
was
heard
zoom,
of.
zoom, zoom. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
back to the West Midlands. Robin, you've been very patient.
Well, I have, and I'll come to kind of what I'm wearing in a moment. Just to say that I also did some sailing when I was younger. We went to Calshot Spit on a disabled activity weekend, and they told it, and they got us sailing in this boat called a Wayfarer, which is apparently unsinkable, and we really tried to prove them wrong. Which also entails a safety boat at some point. Anyway, so hi, good afternoon. I'm Robin Surgener. I'm business director at Together 2012. And as an artist in my own right, I am known as Angry Fish. I'm going to claim I'm an international artist because my music is on iTunes. So I'm global. There you go. So today I am, I've had a couple of days of worry, I think would be a good description. So my grey hair is ever so slightly greyer now than it was on Wednesday's show. I am wearing no rimmed black armed glasses. And I'm looking okay, slimmer by degree, deliberately, by the way, not ill. Don't worry, nobody. And today I am wearing for something to go out and do for the weekend or not. I'm wearing a grey round neck t-shirt. I have worn this before. Some of you may have seen it, but it is a guitar tree. So there's a guitar at the bottom of it. I'll just do my best to show you that. There we go, with a tree sprouting out of it. So after the show, I'm going to get one of my more mature old electric guitars, and I'm going to bury it and see what grows.
Well, that's certainly a way of dealing with stress, which was something I would come on and off, but that's all right. It's just our system. One of those Google glitches which we've been having so often. But yes, I think it's a particularly stressful time for everybody in the UK at the moment, and I really do feel for those working in the NHS. So one of the reasons I'm dressed up to go out to stay in to go bodyboarding is I thought it's time to set our own little lights at the end of the tunnel. So I decided the first light at the end of the tunnel for me would be feeling safe enough to drive down in our minibus to Southend and just be able to go in the water and come home. And after that, my light at the end of the tunnel would be to go back to Wales and to be able to go to White Sands Beach at St David's, which is one of my favourite surf beaches in the UK, and have a proper bodyboard. So I figure by next summer I should manage to go to Southend, and the summer after I should be able to go to Wales. And in the meantime, although I can't really show it without moving everything in the studio, I have a picture, a very large picture above my other computers of somebody walking into the sea with a bodyboard, which is part of a series that I did all back in the mid 90s when I was writing up my PhD in Cornwall and volunteering with Surfers Against Sewage. So that's the light at the end of my tunnel, and I think all of us need to be setting those. I was invited to a Zoom conference with the Mayor of Newham on Wednesday. There were over 100 community, faith, and council people there. And one of the big asks from the NHS is for all of us, whether we have particularly those with long term health conditions, to keep ourselves as fit as possible this winter. It means that if we contract COVID, we have a much better chance, and otherwise, we've got a much better chance of not bothering the NHS. So I think that has to be about mental health as well as physical health. I remember much earlier in the year during Mental Health Awareness Week, when the theme was kindness, Robin so wisely pointed out we have to start by being kind to ourselves. We can't be kind to other people. And particularly when we're feeling quite cross with everything and taking it out on the people around us. So I don't know if anybody else here has got a light at the end of the tunnel yet, but mine is definitely getting on my bodyboard, which is currently at Julie's in my very ancient caravan, so I couldn't bring it out on air. But yeah, that's the light. You know, once I'm in the water, I will know that things are improving.
Yeah, I think I'm blustering now. Generally, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, but occasionally it gets spilt. It has to be said. But so kind of, I have those lights. I've always kind of planning something, some sort of hope about what's going to be good, which includes funding the show, by buying lottery tickets, obviously. um, and just hoping. I think doing the first gig, a gig in front of real people rather than just a camera, is something that I'm kind of looking forward to. And of course, getting back into a competitive swimming environment, and rather than just a training one, would be absolutely fab. And in fact, we've had some dates through today, for a potential first national para swimming meet in January. That's literally hot off the press. Sorry if I stole that from you, Josh. But so there is that, they're hoping, they're starting to plan for real things. So, that's great.
Yeah, and I think it's also really realistic. I was very ill 20 years ago, and I had my thing about if I ever got better, I was going to go and whale watch. Well, guess what? I've never been able to afford to do that. But it's entirely realistic for me to go in the water at Southend, and indeed eventually to get to Wales. It's entirely realistic to be playing in front of an audience, even if that's a socially distanced one, and to be getting the para swimming back. And I think that's one of the things that I think is key, is kind of find things to look forward to, but realistic goals, not aspirational goals. Have
Yeah.
you got any lights at the end of the tunnel, Julie, apart from not having to live here?
Not really at the moment, no.
So Julie will be working on that one. We kind of, I think there's worse things during the pandemic than living in your workplace, but that's effectively what we've been doing for the last 6 months. Josh, I know you've chosen to move home, so presumably moving out again is not the kind of top of your list of priorities, but is there something you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, moving out again.
And me.
apart from the kind of physical pain in the bum that it is to move house, yeah, kind of getting back to my life. And as much as I enjoyed being home and things, and I rocky ups and downs of the last 6-7 months, But having kind of moved out 6 years ago, all of a sudden then having to kind of move back in with your mum and dad is an adjustment and a bit of a kick. So yeah,
Yeah,
just
for
kind of
everybody, I
looking forward to
imagine.
being able to kind of get back
And I think it's one of the biggest issues for anybody under the age of about 35. The number of people who've had to move back with parents already has been quite phenomenal. And of course, although there's a stay on evictions at the moment, that is just going to be gathering pace because people haven't been able to afford to pay rent. But I would also urge you to find something that's going to happen first, because I think another thing that's really important for our mental health is just to say it's going to be a difficult winter. A lot of you out there are already under additional lockdown conditions. We're looking at something national coming up for 2 weeks. Next summer is not going to be like last summer. It's going to be much more like the summer that we've just been living through. And next winter 2021, is not going to be easy. So we have to be realistic about timescales and our own personal goals. But like I say, I personally think by next summer, I'm sure I can get down to Southend, even if it's outside school holiday and at a very kind of antisocial hour. And I'm quite sure the following year it's going to be safe to get to Wales. But I do think we have to be realistic.
Can I just say, I think for me, it's about getting through each day as it comes. And each day I try to find something. There's a book called Pollyanna, which is one of those awful things about this poor girl who temporarily becomes disabled, but she's terribly brave and she's always glad about something. But to be honest, I think there's always something to be glad about. I'm particularly glad about having the animals around us, even when they use me as a trampoline. I'm particularly glad about being able to meet up with friends via this TV show. I'm particularly glad about the fact that I've got a roof over my head and there's food in the fridge. You know what I mean? It's sort of like there's day to day, there's an awful lot to be glad about. And for that, I hold on to it, and that helps me get through day by day. If I start to think back or I start to look forward too much, it could be a little bit gloomy, so I prefer not to.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. And I'm certainly not suggesting otherwise. I'm just saying for me, that kind of, it's not about thinking so much about the future, it's thinking that I will be in that water, in that sort of sense of where you just forget about everything else. But yes, I mean, sometimes the only thing to be glad about is the day's over. But it is. And, that whole thing, tomorrow is another day. But I think at this point, let's move on to, in fact, what will be the last Friday app date. App date has been our new semi-regular feature where we have been following the Test and Trace app, well, the COVID-19 app trial by the NHS in Newham. The app is going live next Thursday, which is incredible. I understand that there have been changes. I won't know what all of them look like until next week, but there have been changes as a result of everybody's input, which is fantastic. I've got a final catch up with the NHS on Monday morning, so I will be reporting back on that. And then going forward on a Monday, we will have a regular app date where we will be looking at all of the art apps and also, of course, reporting on the progress of the NHS app. And we will continue to have that relationship with the NHS. So as you use the app yourselves, if you're not in Newham, please continue to give us that feedback, because like any app, it's always going to be continuously updated. So let's just start with a short excerpt. Well, it's a film in its own right, but it's an excerpt from our longer film, What's App Auntie? And this one just tells us a little bit more about how the Bluetooth function works.
What's up, Auntie?
What are you looking at?
The new NHS COVID-19 app, Auntie.
What's that?
It's a new way to fight coronavirus using our phones. It'll help everyone to protect each other and save lives. The NHS COVID-19 app works using Bluetooth. Bluetooth is a wireless signal. You already use Bluetooth when you connect your phone to your wireless speaker to play music.
I understand. But when I first used the speaker, I had to enter a code to get the phone to connect. What will I have to do to make Bluetooth work with the app?
Nothing. The app will switch Bluetooth on for you. It will even work while your phone is locked.
Will that drain my phone battery?
No, just a tiny bit of power.
Does the app use anything else?
Yes, the app also uses a tiny amount of data. This is because it checks in regularly with the NHS to get the latest information for you.
Will you help me to install the app now, please?
Yes, of course, Auntie. Support the app. Support the NHS. Save lives.
And that was an excerpt from our wonderful film from Sahara. Are you able to hear us in the West Midlands?
Yes, we are all good.
Because I know the
Hooray.
sound doesn't always come back on when it's supposed to. So I think the Bluetooth functionality is absolutely key to the NHS COVID-19 app. It was the major stumbling block. And I take my hats off to the engineers, because it means that even when you haven't switched Bluetooth on, there it is running and working very well. So we will continue to play you those short films, but also the longer film is available on our website www.together2012.org.uk. I'm just going to put that address up, and also with our email address info@together2012.org.uk. Tell us your app stories. So, Josh, we were saying before this started, iPhone has just rushed out an update which came out last night. The operating system is now System 14. I updated mine and was very pleased with it, particularly because I can now, for the very first time, choose not to use Safari. It seems a bit ungrateful to Apple when they've just pushed out a new update, but you can now use Chrome or another browser, which is a bit of a plus. But there's all sorts of other things it does, isn't there, Josh?
Yeah, so there's lots of kind of changes to how things work and kind of new features. For any Android user, I think some of these are things that they've had for a while, but as things around kind of like group messages, that you can now kind of pin messages and kind of do lots of kind of find messages within group chats easier and things like that. The big things for me that I've found so far and kind of playing around with it that I really like is you can now have widgets on the home screen, which are basically kind of gadgety things. So there's 3 sizes. So you can have one that there's a small, which is kind of takes up, for anyone that has an iPhone, the kind of little icons basically is 4 icons in a square, so 2 by 2. There's one that's a rectangle, so 4 by 2, and then there's a larger one that I think is 2 across and then 3 or 4 down. So you can kind of pick what you want, and there's going to be different options of. So there's like a podcast one, there's a music one, a calendar, weather, all sorts of different things, and then they have it's called a smart stack. So that has things like the weather, the calendar, kind of lots of different things, and then you can flick just between them on one thing. and I believe you can add as many as you want to as many pages as you want. But then what they've also done is they've added something called App Library, which from your phone, if you keep swiping left, so away from your home screen, I guess, when you get to the end page, you get something called App Library, which uses kind of smart folders to organize all of your apps into themed things. So all of your games are now in a thing called games, and social media apps are under social and things like that. So I went through this morning and created some widgets that I kind of really want on my home screen, and then 4 kind of little app icons, key ones. So one is settings, and then I've got 3 folders with stuff in. Then I have one other page with my like things I use quite a lot in some folders, and then everything else I just pushed to the app library. Even the things that you don't push are still in there, but it's a way that basically it won't appear on the screen unless you go to the library. So before that, because I was too lazy to organize it, I had about 8 pages of just junk. So I now have 2 pages. I have my home screen with my widgets, and then my commonly used apps, and then everything else is hidden on another screen, in actually quite a neat kind of display, which is really nice. And the final thing that I wanted to touch on super quickly, I was flicking through the update, while it was downloading and kind of reading about what the update was, and I was looking at the improvements to the accessibility or the new accessibility features. I know we talked about it a little bit on Wednesday. The 2 things that I thought were really interesting in that, there's a whole list of things that sound really good, but the 2 that really jumped out was in FaceTime calls and kind of group FaceTime calls. It can now detect if someone is using sign language, and will then automatically make that person's video the most prominent one on the group call, for the person that's signing, which is pretty cool. And then the other one was it uses sound recognition to recognize things like fire alarms and stuff like that, and it will then send you a notification to your phone. So if it hears a fire alarm, your phone will then buzz and it will say, "There's a fire alarm." I guess. So whether that was a feature already and that's something that's improved, or if that's a new feature, but I mean, I imagine for people that are deaf, a feature like that is great, rather than just kind of like, oh, everyone seems to be leaving, what's going on? You're like, oh, it's that kind of.
Well, to be honest, I can see. I mean, I'm sitting there with my iPhone, and I've got as far as going through my 6 pages of rubbish to get to the new app library. And at that point, I'm left asking, how on earth do you move things between the library, etc., etc. So I'm hoping you're going to give us a link that we can put on our highlights and links page, so we can get all this information from the Apple site or wherever.
Yeah, I think Apple have things, and then also there's an app called Tips, which Apple normally puts out things for their new updates and stuff.
Great, so we'll put those links up. But I think, yeah, sorry, Josh, we'll put those links on the highlights and links page. But I'm also thinking it isn't just deaf people. Somebody like me who is slow to process visual and auditory information, I won't take in. Well, I will, because I have an assistance dog. The dog will bark if there's somebody at the front door, but I won't hear the doorbell. So again, to be able to program my phone, and I'm sure that wasn't an option before. So to be able to program the phone to say the doorbell's ringing or something else is happening is, I think, really useful for so many people, because what people I think don't understand is that those kind of recognition things are actually a lower brain function. So any kind of damage to your kind of, your automatic systems, if you like, means you lose that ability to focus automatically on sound or vision. And then your brain just kind of boosts up what it does usually, which is fill in the gaps. You know, when you see something, the brain is always filling in the gaps, but it means for somebody like me, it fills in a bit more gaps. And there isn't usually a bell ringing, so a bell doesn't ring. Although I have just heard the dog barking, so maybe that is a delivery due. Okay, so it's 3:30. We bring you this show as part of our Join In From Home program. So I think, unless we've got anything else to say on apps, we could move on and hear a little bit more on video about Join In From Home.
I just have the ubiquitous pun
Brilliant.
or use of app is that it is great to have all this apparatus that makes life easier for us.
I really appreciate that. You're absolutely right. Together 2012 is running a Join In From Home programme from our website, together2012.org.uk. Click on the link at the top of the page, Join In From Home, to go straight to the main page where you have a wide range of accessible, inclusive creative activities, mostly using things that you would already have at home. At the top of the page and throughout the pages, you will also see videos in British Sign Language to translate the site for deaf people. These videos can also be useful if you have difficulties reading and you simply want to hear more of the content. The Join In From Home programme is based on the activities that we would usually be running in East London. So, for example, we have an arts club which usually operates on a Tuesday with craft-based activities and on a Friday morning for drawing and painting. Here you can join in with the arts club's Hands project and celebrate your uniqueness and membership of the human race. There are full instructions on the linked page here. But essentially, we invite you to draw around your hand on a piece of card. It could be an old cereal packet. Cut the shape out, turn it over, and decorate it with anything you would like to do. It could be paints, crayons, glitter, collage, beads, leaves, anything you can think of. Photograph your hand or hands and send it to us at tv@together2012.org.uk. We'll add it to our video installation and share it on social media. Our music club usually meets on the first Friday of each month. We have an open mic session and we invite everybody to play along with percussion instruments. So here you can learn how to make your own percussion instruments from recycled materials. And you can also join in a percussion workshop from last summer in terms of carnival percussion. So these three instruments are used most often in carnival. We have a shaker and a go-go and a hand drum. So this is how to make a recycled shaker, a recycled go-go, and a recycled hand drum. You can also, if you're technically minded, make your own tactile sound instrument. This does require a few simple electronics, but is a very interesting and exciting project as part of our Vibrafusion ongoing work. You can also listen with Together. We have Spotify playlists created by Robin Surgener, also known as our TV presenter Angry Fish, and we also have 2 classical music playlists from Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, including one that's uniquely suited to people who are feeling very unwell. And here we are back again, I hope. So, on that happy note, we've had a little bit of input from viewers, and I have a video from Stara Plurger, and she's going to show us how she's been painting butterflies. So, I'm going to do a little bit of audio description as we watch this video. So, before I put it on, Stara, who is in her late 20s, is sitting on a bench on the edge of some woodland. They are currently staying in isolation up in Norfolk. She's wearing a blue sundress, and Stella has brown hair with a fringe, and she's got it caught up behind. I think possibly in a plait. So the film starts with her signing, and Hannah, who is also runs Act Up Newham, our associate drama company, Hannah is interpreting.
I'm Sarah, and I made a painting of butterflies. I was painting, watching butterflies in the wood. Butterflies. I was watching butterflies in the wood. Bye.
So first we see the big butterfly count and the pictures of the butterflies from last month's butterfly count, and then the photographs of the butterflies they saw. And now Stara's using prick glue and she's dabbing that on a piece of paper. And then she's cutting out shapes of butterflies by folding them over first, painting them, and then sticking them at the end on her picture. So at the end of it, she has a picture with the different butterflies on that they've seen, made from shapes that they've cut out, and she's then painted. She's painted them using the big butterfly count pictures as a guide for the colours, and then Hannah's written on each one which of those was. So I'm just going to take that off again, and viewers who regulars will remember we talked quite a lot about the butterfly hunt at the time, and I think it's great. If anybody downloaded that app, it is still very, very functional for butterfly spotting. It's very, very easy to use. It has lots of pictures and further descriptions of all the different butterflies in the UK, and I know you used it a lot, didn't you? And Josh also managed, I'm not sure with butterflies, but was doing some very interesting insect photography. So just because the butterfly hunt is over, it's obviously still inspiring people.
And in fact, I was going to say it's inspiring our butterflies because we still have these vestiges of summer. And I was sat looking out from the kitchen just before the show, and there's a beautiful red. Is it an admiral? The one with the target on the wings. It looks like it's like an RAF butterfly. And it's huge. I mean, it must. I mean, from where we were, I could see all the detail, and I was about 20 feet away. So it's a really, really gorgeous looking thing that reminded us that actually, I now know of more butterflies than I used to.
I think we'll be so much more aware of the nature out of our window and the nature on our doorstep by the time this digital phase is past. Julie, did you have anything to add to that, either in terms of butterflies or painting techniques?
I just thought it was really excellent, and I think it's a nice way of getting the shapes of the butterflies, because it's not always so easy to draw them in the way that you see them. So I thought that was very useful and very creative as always, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, a heart is another shape that is easy to cut out by folding a piece of paper, or indeed a rainbow. But I think if drawing kind of careful outlines isn't your thing, then having these outlines that are very simple that you can then colour in or decorate with things like glitter can just be really relaxing and a lot of fun. So, coming up next, something for the weekend. What recommendations do we have for viewers this weekend? Who shall I start with? Julie?
Yeah, I did a trawl of various London sites, because it's quite a busy weekend for London historically, because we have the Open London Weekend, or the Open Weekend for London. In the past, I've taken part in it down at my studio at Trinity Buoy Wharf and loved it. It's been a wonderful opportunity to meet people and also to focus on my own practice for a while, which is not quite so easy at the moment. But I couldn't really work out what was virtual. What I have done though was find the shop, which surprised me. It wasn't something I was actively looking for, but I found all these little cutout models of various buildings in London which are being featured this year. So I've sent off for them, and I'm looking forward to receiving them and making them up and possibly using them for an animation. So I'm quite excited about that. The other thing is it's London Design Weekend. And again, there are some podcasts of discussions about design and architecture, which is always interesting. But sort of like you have to be in the right mood to sit down and listen to them or watch them, indeed, because I think they've got a YouTube channel. But the one that really, really, got my imagination, and I think I'm going to follow up more actively, is the Thames Festival Trust. There's a load of events on this weekend, and there's a lot of digital sort of like offer. Sort of like there's some lovely films which are up all month, and again they've got a YouTube channel of their own. I had a little dip in because I just love the Thames. I was born not very far from it. And it's so much a part of my life, particularly with my studio. So I had a lovely dip in and dip out. But I think over the weekend, I think I'm going to definitely sort of sit down properly and just look at some of the little films they've got.
Great. And on the open house weekend, I think it's the open house weekend. The title kind of escapes me slightly
Yeah, me
already.
too.
So you're saying you're not sure which is virtual and which is real. Could you
No.
give us any examples?
Well, there's a lot of cycle rides, which are real in real time, but you have to pay to go on them. There's walks featuring different aspects of London life. So actually, there's a very interesting walk which you can. I've got a feeling it's booked up though, but it's about the slave history. I think probably of the East End, because that's predominantly where the docks are. Although it could be any part of London, in truth, couldn't it? Let's be real about it. There's there's sort of like there's not a lot that's obviously digital on it, and I was really disappointed in the site.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should perhaps feed that back as well. Of course, what you can do if you decide you're just interested this weekend in London buildings, maybe you've got buildings you've always fancied visiting and never got round to it, have a look at their websites, because their
Yeah.
websites are there anyway, but also Google Street View. And sometimes you can look at these things and go, well, there's a paid for real walk that's going to go and see these different places. I can look at that at home from Google Street View. And the slave history of East London is, I think, one of the particularly interesting aspects, but by far from being the only one. But if you are interested in that history, I don't know if Museum of London Docklands is open this weekend. We've done quite a lot of work with Museum of London Docklands in the past, but there's a lot of sites immediately outside with lots of information immediately outside and enough space to be able to socially distance, I think, very easily. Although, of course, you have got to be able to get there. And I wouldn't recommend, I think, any of us at the moment, if you're in the shielding group, maybe this is not the weekend to be going out when there's so much virtually on offer. So, what do you recommend from the West Midlands?
I had a real mixed bag of stuff for this weekend. So some sporty stuff. Mentioned on Wednesday that today was the closing ceremony of the 2016 Paralympics. So you can watch the whole kind of closing ceremony of that on YouTube. I think, and the opening ceremony as well, and a load of highlights. I think probably that I was highlighting the closing ceremony and kind of the artistic spectacle that they are. Also in sport, it's the Le Mans 24-hour race this weekend. So we're kind of dropping in and watching bits of that. Certainly not the whole thing. Then trying to practice some new and learn some new kind of photography and filmmaking techniques. I've got a new camera, and I made a lockdown purchase. So I'm going to kind of have a look online for some kind of tips and guides and things. for that and play around with that. And then to finish off, as the resident nerd of the show, as Ju likes to say, yesterday was the 2020 Ig Nobel Prize award ceremony, which is a play on the Nobel Prize, which ideas that make you laugh and then think. So you can just kind of go online and see what the different awards are and kind of what they were for. But there is also a full kind of hour and a half, I think, or around that, kind of pre-recorded show. That's kind of the ceremony that is very strange and kind of out there and campy and very comfortable with what it is, and it knows what it is. I was watching some of that earlier, but they do all sorts of, there's a 3-part mini opera in it. There's kind of the people getting their prizes. They do something called 24/7 lectures, which you have 24 seconds to explain your research in kind of full technical detail. And then you have to explain it for everybody to understand in 7 words, which is quite interesting to kind of see people do that. And then the final one, there are some very funny awards in this year's one. And then the final one is similar to what Julie was saying with podcasts. I'm going to catch up on the latest season of the Infinite Monkey Cage podcast, which finished its run a couple of weeks ago. I haven't listened to any of it yet, so I'm going to sit down over the weekend and catch up on that.
Cool. Right. Well, over to me then. Well, I'm going very, very sub-technical, I think, actually, although it does involve a website. So I in fact, I think I've scored enough points on this for something for the weekend, for at least the next 5 weekends. I found a website called lifehack.org, which I have, of course, forwarded a link and a short description to go up on the site. And basically, it is a kind of really nice set of simple ideas to do at home, from playing noughts and crosses or hangman, to sentence games, to building a kite, and I'm just to the most extravagant thing being, how to make popcorn or how to make a loaf of bread. Some ideas around visiting some things online, but it's just actually one of those. I was quite pleased when I found it, because it's kind of like, yeah, I don't have to think. And sometimes, you were saying earlier about, kind of the whole well-being thing. Actually, that's one of those weekends. I mean, tomorrow I've got coaching and then a sports seminar anyway. And then I'm thinking, so Saturday evening, Sunday, I'm done. I just, and playing noughts and crosses just sounds like an ideal way to de-stress.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked, I think, quite a lot about how it's very difficult at the moment to do certain kinds of creative activity, and sometimes doing something that isn't creative at all really works. Josh, I'm so intrigued. Can you give us just one example of one of these Ig Nobel Prize winners?
Yes. So for this year's prize in acoustics, it went to a research team for recording a female Chinese alligator bellowing, and the difference between a air-filled tank and a hydrogen-rich tank. So basically, it's making a crocodile grunt while it's inhaled a party balloon.
Helium.
Now, yeah, with
so you said hydrogen, you meant helium.
Yes, helium. Sorry. The scientific reason is they wanted to see if its vocal cords are resonant frequencies. So if the pitch goes up because of the helium, the kind of sound waves are compressed, so it's higher. But yeah, they kind of just put an alligator in a box filled with kind of oxygen and helium, and to see if it went a bit squeakier. And it did, and stuff like that.
I think we're in the wrong business.
Yeah, there was some very funny ones.
I don't know. I'm quite happy to steer away from boxed alligators.
Well, I suppose there is that. I remember last century, visiting my mother, who had married somebody who lived in the States, and was just astonished to get to Florida and discovered that people lived on these estates where you had alligators wandering around. And I thought, well, this is a very interesting approach to what to do when you're too slow to get away from the alligators. I know the country doesn't have a kind of joined up social care system or a state health service, but I thought that was really a bit extreme, seeing all these massive alligators running around between the pensioners. But that's America for you. So is that the end of the recommendations from the West Midlands, or is there more to come?
I mean, I can give you some more funny Ig Nobel Prize awards if you want, but other than that, that's the
No,
that's
Well,
it.
I've got
Yeah.
2 more recommendations here, and I think Julie's got one more. I've shamelessly stolen mine from the Guardian newspaper, who also have a whole series of things about what's on next week. But presumably, if I wanted to know what's on this weekend, I would have had to look at last Friday's paper. So I think they've missed a few tricks, but there's a 12-part series on BBC Sounds, and BBC Sounds is something Julie often recommends for the weekend anyway. And it's a 12-part series called Ecstasy, The Battle of Rave, and it's looking at back in the 80s and 90s rave culture. Apparently, there's 6 documentary episodes also chart the drugs impact. There's a 5-part tale of ravers and the club industry, and a roundtable discussion. I have to say, I might be skipping the stuff around drugs and the roundtable discussion, but I think the stuff around subculture and music sounds really interesting. Also, every week, but I haven't flagged this up before, The Guardian do a podcast called Science Weekly, and it's their health editor, Sarah Bosley, and she gets joined by reporters and then takes questions from the public. Obviously, at the moment, that's all based around COVID. But they apparently potential impacts of the flu system has been one thing, and very relevant to what we were talking earlier, how to tackle healthy eating. We could possibly, apart from Robin, who's been doing all the right things since the beginning of lockdown, all get a few tips from that. Julie, what's your final recommendation?
Well, it was something I came across and sort of got very excited about, and then got very disappointed about because it's very expensive. The English National Opera are doing a drive-in version of La Boheme. It's not the full version. It's been cut, but it's up at the Ali Pali, and apparently they booked it well before the pandemic struck. So they were actually sort of a bit spooky there. They were well in advance, but the cars cost over £100 each to park up. But you can go on bicycle, and apparently you can go on foot. But it seemed an awful lot of money to me.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if there's 4 of you and you're used to going to the opera, I think our budget for entertainment, like so many people's, is so minuscule that it's
£8
not
a month.
Yes, I haven't noticed the impact in my pocket of not going out, to put it that way, because we weren't really paying to go out anyway. So yeah, I think we've got time for one more funny award winner, Josh.
Shall I pick a good one?
hopefully.
I liked the one that was this year's Entomology Prize, awarded to Richard Vetter for collecting evidence that many entomologists are afraid of spiders. And then the article is called Arachnophobic Entomologists When 2 More Legs Makes a Big Difference. For those that don't know, entomologists are people that study insects. Arachnophobic entomologists is quite a funny.
So insects, by definition, have 6 legs.
No.
Oh.
But I think they probably all have more than 2.
Yeah.
Multiple legs.
Yes, spiders aren't insects, but apparently it's a common trend that
Oh,
people
I
that
see.
study
Not
insects
gonna
are
go
scared of
on all this
spiders.
one, not while we're on air anyway. So next week coming up, we have on Monday our new usual update. We also have a range of other things, including lots of focus on film and photography. I'm delighted to say that includes an interview that's already been recorded by Julie with photographer Tim Body. Now, some people may have seen Tim's work on the BBC last week. He has produced a series of beautiful, beautiful photographs of plants using techniques where you create the emulsion that you develop the photo on. I'm getting more and more confused here, with vegetables. So we will have that interview with Tim explaining how he produced these pictures that have been featured on the BBC. We'll be having another look at those pictures. and having general discussions about photography and filmmaking as well. Wednesday, we always have our Clockwork Paralympics, report on sports and virtual gaming from Josh, but most importantly of all, lots and lots of poetry.
And racing.
Well, that's the Clockwork Paralympics, isn't
Yeah.
it? But
But we've got a grudge.
yes, our teddy bear has behind us. Ash is very unhappy.
He's not. He's taken the hump because he's not there.
Oh, he's there. It's just he's
I think they
Ah.
can do it however many
Oh, he's a
Blending in.
camouflage teddy.
years.
he's
So that was a
a bear.
good bit of teddy bear hunting there because we couldn't see him at that point.
Well, your teddy bear, despite the fact it's got a medal on, is not visible at all. But before we go completely off topic again, we wind up on a Friday for the weekend with live music from Robin or a guest. I'm delighted to say that it's Robin again this week. So the rest of us are going to say goodbye. Have a great weekend. Stay creative, stay home, and stay well. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Monday. The recording of this show will be up by 7 o'clock, along with the highlights and links page. The captions take a bit longer. You can find recordings of all of our past programs on our website and also past highlights and links. Just follow the page down. So that's goodbye from me, Ju Gosling, Julie Newman.
Yes, it was here. Tom was there. Okay, so this is a song called Scapegoat Blues. I wrote this a few years ago. So, but there's a line in there where you can feel free to insert whichever particular prime minister you feel it relevant to, or indeed any prime minister, because it will probably still be relevant. So we're being absolutely apolitical on this. It is aimed at prime ministers per se. So this is Scapegoat Blues. Sitting round wondering what to do, feeling kind of bored, just kicking at my shoes, being rolled over, spat at and vilified by the news. I think I'm suffering from scapegoat blues. I think I'm suffering from scapegoat blues. I've got a great new lifestyle funded by the government. I can't afford the heating. Perhaps that's what is meant by cutting all the benefits and giving us a fitting cap that balances the economy and leaves me feeling really crap. All my life I tried to fit the mould, but it don't make no sense. I think they better go. Whatever good we do always seems to get the blame for the bankrupt country and all the bogus benefit claims. I got the scapegoat blues. It was nothing that we did, you know. We face a public vote, 'cause opinion is the new game show. We got the scapegoat blues. The weak are under fire again, 'cause Cameron or Johnson or May or Brown or what was that one before him, Blair, is a dictator, and their deputies are just the same. So I got a load of letters by proxy from the government via the Daily Mail, the Sun and other media departments. It doesn't seem to matter. We continue to refuse to accept their indoctrination. Got the scapegoat blues. I got a load of letters by proxy from the government via the Daily Mail, the Sun and other media departments. It don't seem to matter. We continue to refuse to accept the indoctrination. Got the scapegoat blues. To accept the indoctrination. Got the scapegoat blues. I've got the scapegoat blues. I've got the scapegoat blues. Thank you. Have a fantastic weekend. See you on Monday.